So, today I'll be discussing some bitter truths about studying abroad and some tips to reduce their negative effects. Make sure you have water with you because it's going to be hard to swallow these pills. Anyway, hey guys, my name is Dr. Subramanian, currently an intern practicing in Delhi, and yes, I am a foreign medical graduate. I did my MBBS medicine from abroad, Armenia, and I reside in India. So I practiced MBBS abroad. So I know what I'm talking about here, and I have experienced all of this. I recently discussed in another video the benefits of studying abroad, and this is something completely opposite. While studying abroad comes with its perks, there are also some downsides to it, and I don't want to have just a biased opinion of benefits of studying abroad. So here's the harsh truth about studying abroad, starting with number one, lack of supervision. So all our lives we are held accountable for our actions, right? But when you're studying abroad, you have the freedom to be yourself. You are independent. Now, I told you this is one of the benefits of studying abroad. But this is where lack of supervision, this term comes in. Because of lack of supervision, you as in the general people who are studying abroad, sometimes don't hold themselves accountable enough for their actions. So, number one, let's say, why did you go to study abroad? To excel in your studies, to become a doctor. So these are your primary goals. Secondary goals can be exploring a new country, etc. etc. If exploring a new country was a primary goal, you would not go to study abroad, you will just travel. This is where lack of supervision comes in. So I'm not saying everyone, but some people tend to divert from their academic goals and go into travel, hanging out, not studying, which tends to eventually hamper their academic front, and which was the primary reason why they went abroad. So while enjoying and traveling should definitely be done, and I certainly did my share of it, it's the lack of supervision which lets these traveling and enjoyment take a forefront and keep the academics at bay, which was the primary thing you went because of. So this lack of supervision should be taken care of, and I already told you I'll have some amazing tips to counter all these harsh truths of studying abroad. Anyway, jumping on to number two, which is the language barrier. Now, it is really exciting and awesome to learn a new language, connect with new people, but it is really hard to get the fluency of the local. Communication with patients becomes a chore and often becomes very difficult because they use some words which aren't sufficient to draw a diagnosis. For example, I know simple words like pain, abdomen, pain, head, something like that, and I can catch most of the words to understand what the patient is saying. But sometimes taking the history of the patient can go onto Rambo mode and start from the beginning and really go deep into the history, and can use some words and all, basically the language you won't understand even though you have learned it. Everyone has to agree here that the best patient-doctor interaction can be in their primary or second language. This is where I've learned a new language and then interacting with the patient. So there is sometimes, not always, that this doctor-patient interaction is not really good, and this is where our teachers and doctors come to help us, and they translate what the patient is trying to say, and then this is the normal thing. So this can be a hindrance for some people, so I thought I should mention it. While learning a new language is amazingly well, the patient-doctor interaction suffers a bit. Not much, just a bit. Jumping to number three, which is practical exposure. Now, this is a very objective aspect of studying medicine abroad, right? Everywhere you see that, you want to study abroad, you can't even do this, you can't even do that. So let me give you guys an example, a context. India has a larger population, because of which you will obviously see more day-to-day cases in your training, and you will see more common cases like diabetes, hypertension, and etc. And you will eventually become an expert at understanding these diagnoses and cases. Now, studying medicine abroad does not mean there is no practical exposure. There is practical exposure, just the frequency might be less. I certainly had all the practical exposure as a student, except a few. Let me name it right now. Now, this depends on country to country. For example, in Armenia, personally, I did not get to dissect a cadaver which MBBS students in India get to do that on day one of anatomy class. Does not mean we did not do anything. We got to see, hold, examine the already cut organs, already dissected organs and body parts, let's say. We also got to examine the human body as a whole, dissected parts, everything. But that came later in our curriculum when there was a forensics class and we were doing postmortems and etc. with our doctors and teachers. So we got all the hands-on experience, right from having some maneuvers in like OBGYN, for example, Leopold's maneuver, fetal heart sound, everything we got to practice on patients to small things. Talking about invasive procedures, obviously we could not do invasive procedures, but like we practice them on 3D models, robots, what do you say, like putting in a cannula, IM injection, Ryle's tube, etc. and etc. So that was practice on 3D models to teach us, and eventually when we go to a patient we can replicate that. And yes, this will take practice, and that's why you have internship. So in internship, when you come back to your home country, you'll do internship, you will have plenty of time to do all of this. I did not ever put a cannula or IM, injection while I was in Armenia, but in internship I've certainly done so, and I certainly replicated what I practiced there on 3D models. I saw here in internship, I learned from observation and then eventually did it in my internship. So this is the solution for that. Jumping on to the next point, living alone. Yes, having a place to yourself, being independent, cooking, cleaning, etc., spending time with your friends, making new friends, it's all very exciting, right? Not denying that. But at times when, let's say, you have exams coming, or let's say you live with a roommate and you have a fight, or when you are sick, then these, chores add up. Then you don't want to cook, then you don't want to clean your house, you just want to sit and relax, or sit and study because you have exams. And this is where you miss your home, you miss the home remedies which you had. You got all the food at your home, you had your parents, family to take care of you when you were sick. So of course friends can do that too, but let's say you all have exams, so you all don't have time to cook. So this is what happens when you study abroad. And I can certainly remember on most exam days, like previous days or 2-3 days before, I certainly did not have the time to cook. I either meal prepped, or I just ordered food from outside, which maybe would not have happened had I been staying here at the comfort of my home. So this is not a deal breaker, but just something you guys should know. Also, living alone, you tend to miss out on many festivals and events. You always celebrate Diwali with your family. Well, say bye-bye to that and say hello to FaceTime calls and video calls on festival. Living alone can also affect your mental health. Now, this is a big one. When you live alone, it is very, very important to have a good social circle. The constant self-doubt that you are not doing enough, the heartbreaks and fights with friends, the worry of being alone and messing everything up, the anxiety of handling everything on your own properly, also the anxiety that your family is in a different country, how are they well, everything can add up sometimes and can take a toll on your mental health. So it is very important to stay strong, have a strong social circle, always talk to your family, etc. and etc., because living alone in these early adult year of your life can affect you. So just be careful, and it's not that difficult. All you have to do is have a good social circle, talk to your family every day, and yes, build habits. Anyway, we'll talk about all the solutions later in the video. Jumping on to our next harsh, bitter truth, which is the study pattern. The pattern of studying does change a bit when you're studying in a different country, because it adds an extra effort to stay updated on the curriculum of the country you are studying in and the country you wish to practice in the future, which can be your home country. So let's say you plan to come back to your home country, in my case India, then you'll have one part of your brain worrying about the exam which you must give when you're back in India, in your home country, in addition to the university exams which you're already giving there studying abroad. There can be a pattern in curriculum also. So for example, the anatomy which I studied in Armenia was like first the skeletal system, the musculature system, then the nervous system. Everywhere else, I would say, at least in India, it's like regional wise, head and neck anatomy, upper limb, lower limb, etc., etc. Minor changes, we eventually covered everything at the end. At the end, the syllabus was the same, but some changes in the curriculum were obviously there. So yeah, that is the last bitter truth. And I know this video may look very dark and to an extent depressing, but I am a doctor who graduated from a foreign country myself and did so with no regrets and memories that I'll cherish forever. I have some ways by which you can swallow these bitter pills, and this is not water, these are actually solution. So let's begin. Always remember, priority is that you pass your exams well, and in the process you will learn the medical literature which is needed to become a doctor. Now, passing exams will tackle two things. Number one, to pass you'll have to study, and number two, if you are constantly passing your exam, you will have that self-confidence. You won't have that anxiety, you won't have low self-esteem that you failed an exam. And when you're living alone, these small things, or actually big things, really matter a lot. You need to keep your self-confidence high and everything else. So make sure you're studying at least minimum well enough to pass your exams, and you'll be good to go. I personally felt that coming in my penultimate year, so the second last year, that I realized I do not know anything. Subhav, you don't know anything, and that's when it hit me that I have to start studying regularly and not just for my exams. So that is when I revised all my previous years well, and it eventually helped me to build a strong base to tackle the entrance exams coming in the future. But you don't have to do this. You can just study regularly from day one, and you'll have enough time to learn and also have a bash party with your friends and have a great life MBBS abroad, right? Number two, learn to maintain a balance between your social and academic life. Having friends with similar goals as of yours will bolster your academic performance and also create a strong social circle, which is important when living alone. So if you're preparing for USMLE, I think having friends who are also preparing for USMLE will bolster your confidence. You'll be discussing the same things, etc. and etc. This is true. Somebody has to stop messaging me. This is true in all the cases. So yeah, having a strong social circle and preferentially with the same goals will really go a long way. Number three, stay connected with everyone back at home. So internet indeed is our best friend abroad. I used to FaceTime every single day with my family, so much that they got tired of me sometimes, and they were like, we've talked enough, let's call tomorrow. Anyway, try to be an active student and gain as much exposure as possible, and you'll have the chance to be in different societies also in your medical school, give presentations and all, which will bolster your CV and etc. etc. So again, boosting self-confidence is a big part when you're living alone. So take part in these societies, and eventually it will make you help form a social circle as well. Next up is making habits. Now you have to manage your house or your hostel room and yourself and your studies, etc. and etc. Making habits is really important. For example, I used to FaceTime my family every time while washing the dishes. So it became a habit that whenever I wash the dishes, it never seemed like a chore, because whenever I wash the dishes, I FaceTimed with my family, and that's how I always wash the dishes and I always talk to my family. Complementing two things which you don't want to miss and just doing them together. Next up, don't be concerned about the FMG exam back in India, or which is going to be replaced by the common exam next very soon. So whatever exam you give, you will end up studying for it, and the syllabus might not be the same, but I can assure you it is similar enough to give you all the knowledge you need, and it will be really helpful when you are in your future years as a doctor. All this knowledge will not go into waste when you're studying for an extra exam. It will actually benefit you in your clinical years as a doctor. And that's about it. I hope I've covered all the solutions to the harsh truths which are there apparently when you're studying MBBS abroad. If you have any, let me know, comment down below. And if you like this video and if you want to know more about MBBS or medicine abroad, make sure to follow me on Instagram also, because that's where I post a lot of these things also. And like the whole shebang, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and until then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay mad, but just about medicine.